Thanks, Laura. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we're going to jump in and get started. And let me get over here. And Laura, I'm just going to ask that you confirm for me. You can see the reveal math on my screen.
Yes, I can see that.
Okay, so we're specifically going to be focused on reveal math for grades K to 5. I do want to just mention one thing right at the beginning. Reveal math is a core curriculum. Inside of that core curriculum, we'll see how it contains tier 1 and some tier 2 resources. But a couple other things just to keep in mind. One are some of the personalized learning opportunities that McGraw has for math, like Alex, that really it's now grades K to 12, supports all student and personalized. And then if there's intensive intervention needs, please reach out to us. That's for those students that are more than 2 grade levels behind and really need intensive support around their math achievement. Now, I'm gonna click ahead a full span of print resources in Reveal K5, and then also a full digital supplement that goes all along with it. But really, my goal during the time we have is to walk you through the structure of the program. So if you're using Reveal Math, either previous user or new user, you have a feeling of how the flow of the program and what it should look like in your classroom. So Reveal Math is what we call a balanced math program. And by balance, what we mean is there are inquiry opportunities for students to actually play with the math to develop conceptual understanding. And there are guided opportunities for you as a teacher to lead them into the math. You'll see an emphasis on student discourse and on student agency within it. So 5 themes we're going to see run through the program are creating a positive mindset toward math, building curiosity, flexibility for you as a teacher, both in the lesson structure and in the differentiation opportunities. We're going to see the integration of 3 sets of routines. And again, you're going to see an emphasis on student mathematical discourse, because the more students are talking about the math and using the math vocabulary, the more they internalize the math structure. Because at the end of the day, we want students owning the math that they can use it in the future on their own. So without further ado, we're going to look at 3 things. We're going to look at building a positive environment in the math classroom. Secondly, we're going to look at how Reveal Math has a flexible lesson design that you can use. And third, we're going to look at activities that are tailored to student needs based on their performance in the lesson. So let's start out with this positive classroom. And I'm only going to mention one thing right here. Math anxiety is a real thing. There are students and teachers, by the way, that when they get into math period think, oh, they're afraid of it. And you know what? If the teacher has that math anxiety, students pick up on that. So we wanted to do things that created things around that environment, because we know every student, especially in math, needs a good start. So let me share with you some things that we've done. Number 1, at every grade level, K to 5, we start out with a math attitude survey. If you're using Reveal Math at any of those grade levels, this is a printable. Please do not skip it. It will give you an idea about how your students feel about mathematical content. And why that's so important is it lets you know how to address them. So notice a couple of these questions. This comes from 3rd grade. I can see math in the world around me. I agree. I'm not sure. I disagree. In fact, if you ask that question to a lot of adults today, we could see a lot of people that say, I disagree. I don't see math, even though all of us use it every single day. Look at number 3. Math is about solving equations quickly. And I will tell you this, the majority of our students think that is exactly what math is about. How quickly can I get the right answer? That is not what math is about. It's learning how to solve equations, which means we're going to make mistakes, we're going to learn new things, and that, just knowing that, removes some of that anxiety. So we start out with a math attitude survey, and then in Reveal Math, we do something really unique at every grade level. We start every grade level off with a unit called the Math Is unit. The ideas are the same at every grade level, but the content is adjusted to be appropriate for the grade. So every grade level starts out with lesson one that looks at math as mine. And I'm only going to touch on a couple things here because of time. Number one, we start out with this be curious, notice, and wonder. What do you notice about all those students? They're all in superhero costumes. So when we go into this lesson, number one, you as a teacher get to share your math story and you get to share about what you think your math superpower is. Because you know what? All of us have a math superpower. One of mine is mental math. One of my colleagues asked his fourth grade daughter a little while ago, and she said, "Oh, Dad, you know, it's adding." And she said, "Why is it adding?" Because I do it really well. And you know what? Every student has something in math they do well that starts it out with um, a positive emphasis on that. But even you telling your story does that. Lessons 2 to 5 in that math is unit focus on what is mathematical thinking. And really, what we're looking at is the 8 mathematical practices that make up math. And we look at what math is all about. It's not just about getting the right answer quickly. It's about applying practices. It's about communicating about the math. It's thinking mathematically. And we share that with the students and allow them to work on some of that. Then we go into lesson 6, which wraps up this initial math is unit about math is ours. That I know what skills and mindsets are expected. And then they even get to get in how we do math together. And then what should our classroom norms be for math? What should our math classroom look like? And it's an opportunity for students to have involvement. But the whole focus of this initial unit is 2 things. Number one, what is math really about? And number 2, how are we going to engage in math this year? And that goes into the whole fact that we're going to have verbal discourse about it with each other. And we wouldn't use that word, but we're going to talk about math together. And we're going to use mathematical words and we're going to discover together. So it creates an opportunity that lets math class be less threatening. Now, when we go into any other unit, we're going to have this structure. We're going to have a unit opener. We're going to look at these pieces. We're going to go into a couple of lessons, and then we're going to have a unique piece called the math probe. The math probe looks at specific misconceptions around that mathematical content, and it will happen at the best place in that unit. Students always have a scenario. They always have a choice, and they always have to explain that choice. But it identifies for you what some of those things might be. And in fact, in the teacher edition, it identifies the misconception we're looking at. It shows potential student work. And then it also gives you action to take if students are struggling. We finish up the rest of the lessons in that unit. We do our review and our fluency practice. And again, in the teacher edition, I always know what fluency idea that I'm working on. Again, we're in 3rd grade, but we may be looking at a 7th grade topic that we're building fluency around. And then we have our assessment. There's both a unit performance task and 2 different versions of the unit summative assessment. Now, let's look at some of those features at that unit level then. If you are jotting anything down, please write this down. Every unit, K to 5, starts with a how ready am I, or really, it's the readiness diagnostic. Now, print, notice 10 questions or digital. You can give it either way. Please do not skip this, because one of the things you're going to find in McGraw Hill's Reveal Math is that anytime we do an assessment, we also give action you can take. Now, the how ready am I is not a pretest. It's not looking at the unit standards or the unit concepts. It's looking at the prerequisite skills needed for this unit. And then in the teacher edition for this unit, again, I'm at grade 3. you're going to see here, item number 1, I see the question. It's a DOK level 1 question. The skill it's identifying or focusing on is given images, identify a shape, and I see the standard associated with that, which is a second grade standard. Now, again, I'm using a third grade example today, but the standard I'm looking at is a second grade standard that's going to be needed in the current unit I'm going into. Now, that's all great, but what if the students are struggling with this idea? What do I as a teacher do? And you're going to notice in that larger column, the one that says guided support and intervention lesson, that we have created tier 1 and tier 2 material to support the student in acquiring that missing skill while we go into the unit. And the reason that's so important in math is math is sequentially developed. That means if I'm missing prior skills, I'm going to struggle with the grade level skills. Now notice, a lot of these questions are on the primary focus of this unit, which is equal shares of the same whole shape. So multiple ones are on that. Now, I'm going to go into the digital just for a minute before I even show you the next couple of slides, because you as a teacher, if you're new to this, might say, well, where do I find this? So I'm going to click over to the digital, and I have the digital up for grade 3. Now, this is the teacher dashboard. The student side is much simpler, but if you went in here as a teacher, here's the 30-second tour. On the left-hand side, these are all my teacher menu items. So I see my assignments, I see my reports. If I scroll down a little bit, I see the digital version of all my assessments here. This is something you can go in and explore. In fact, on the right-hand side, there's a little video that says a digital walkthrough of Reveal Math that's going to walk you through this teacher center. Second thing is my calendar. Anything I put on here will go on the student to-do list for them to get to quickly right on their dashboard. I see my teacher edition, my student edition, and then I see some of my resources on the right-hand side. And last, this is the second thing I'm going to ask you to write down because it's one of the most important things you could walk away with. You're going to see a button that says Browse Your Course. Now, when I click that button open, this is the part I want you to write down. The materials in Reveal Math are organized on 3 levels. Program level first, unit level second, lesson level third. So you'll notice at the top, these first 5 blades, we call them, are program level resources. So learning and support, all my embedded professional development right here. Course materials, that would be my course-wide pacing guide. It would be my standards correlation. It would be my complete teacher's edition. We have all of the course level assessments right here that you can look at, but those are the course resources. I know I have a couple coordinators on here, at least 2 or 3 that I saw. I just want to share this one with you really quick. If you go into the program learning resources, it will bring that blade up. And if I click into it, I'm going to have a number of resources that will support my teachers in the use of it. Number 1, getting started with Reveal Math. And if I click that open, here's my welcome letter. And then when I go down, my digital walkthrough, but the one I want to mention are these 2 right here. This Quick Start course is an online course available anytime that a teacher can go in and look specifically at the parts of Reveal Math that they want to. I could go in and just look at assessment. I could look at the unit level, at the lesson. And underneath it is my implementation guide, which is a huge support for those materials. The other one I want you to see on here is when I close this up, look at your admin support like walkthroughs. We built in a couple ready to teach workshops, and then every unique pedagogical feature, the math is unit we just talked about, the be curious moments or sense making routines. There are author videos built in here to support you and your teachers in making a shift to using some of these pedagogical features, let me show you one example. If I open the Be Curious moment, Annie Feder, our author, the shift towards sense making. Why are there Be Curious moments? What are we trying to do with them? And then she actually gets into the different ones, notice and wonder. And here it is modeled in a classroom. How do I do that? And this is a grade 2 model. We can go down. I got a grade 5 model here. So you're going to see some different strategies that we use, and then you're going to see those modeled in a classroom. So that professional overview, the learning and support, big piece for you. Now, I'm in grade 3. I'm going to click into unit 7, and I want to just show you what I was just talking about. So unit 7 is on fractions. I see my lesson, I see my math probe, and so on. We're going to click into the unit level, and everything you need for this unit is going to be right here. My unit resources would be my teacher guide and some planning pieces. My readiness diagnostic is what we just talked about. Here is the digital version, and right underneath it is the printable version. So either way that you want to give it, you're going to find it right there. And just remember that with that readiness diagnostic is this intervention chart. So it says these guided intervention lessons. Well, where do I find those? Right under the readiness diagnostic, it says targeted intervention. When I click this open, each skill that we have, that targeted intervention, you're going to find a small group lesson right here. You're going to find some support for that, but you will see those resources. Here's rows and columns. You're going to see those materials right there that are mentioned in that teacher guide for that tier 1 and tier 2 intervention. Now, notice underneath it, STEM in action, Ignite, Spanish resources, all my answer keys. Now, let me go back to my presentation then. So we see the how ready am I? And then what we've done is we've done those guided intervention support lessons. We just saw where those were. Okay. Now, I do want to mention this though. If you give that readiness diagnostic or your unit assessment, if you give them digitally, it will actually give you a remediation report. If I looked at the assignment, I would see this tab. When I open it, I see a couple of those skills. Choose 2D shapes based on attributes. At the end of it, I can see 2 students need that. Equal shares of whole shapes. I can see 3 students need that. And then if I click that open, I actually see who those students are and what resources right here are available. And if it's like the skill support, that's an independent piece, I can assign that right out to this group. Now, I could change the group, add more people, or I know that Madeline knows this, so I could take that away, but it lets you customize this. And then, teachers, if you teach K1 and 2 and they're not ready for the digital, if you assign it digitally, there is a score sheet that you can upload. So you can still have them take it paper and pencil, but you can touch on that score sheet and upload it and still get the remediation report on that. It just allows you to go through that material with those prerequisite skills to notice what's important for your students. Now, by the way, I'm going to stop sharing just for a second, and then I'm going to reshare for a minute. And the reason I'm doing that, I want to reshare with my audio, and I'll bring me back to the same page. So beginning of the unit, we have the readiness diagnostic. Second thing, every unit starts out with a STEM focus. We have like 18 different career kids, and the reason we do this is we want students to realize math is connected to the real world. So in this, you're going to see in the student book, talks about Haley, we see the question, what are fractions, how can I represent them? And then we have a couple videos you can use with them. This is the first one. Let me click on here.
Oh, hey, I'm Haley. It's a great night for stargazing. Stars may be many millions of miles away. If you measure how bright a star is, the data can help you determine how far away it is. Someday, I hope to discover new stars. The sky's the limit when you're an astronomer.
So the first video is a career-oriented video, but there's a second video that introduces a problem that in her career, Haley would have to deal with that deals with the math in this unit.
I'm checking out the moon. You can see about 1/2 of it right now. Last week, the moon was a crescent, and you could see about 1/4 of it. Next week, I should be able to see 3/4 of the moon.
And so she introduces this idea right at the beginning about fractions. And then the great thing is we're going to see Haley throughout this unit. She'll be in some of the practice problems. She'll be, and this will be in different lessons. At times, the performance task, like in this particular unit, the performance task deals with Haley in her career, but with the math that we're working with. And again, why are we doing that? How does it champion a positive environment? It actually says math is applicable in the real world. So you're going to see a variety of the career kids from K all the way up to grade 5, all kinds of variety of careers, different genders, different ethnicities of students, because we want to show them that math is in the real world and they can fit into math both in a career, but in their interests. The other thing we do at the unit level to begin the unit is we involve them in a great activity called an Ignite activity. All of these are written by Dr. Raj Shah. You're going to notice this one looks at sharing muffins. Again, we're going into a unit on fractions, but we haven't taught it yet. So it gives the students something to put their mind around building curiosity. So every day, you're going to share these muffins with a different number of students. So day 1 is easy. Day 1, we have 6 muffins that we're going to share with 3 students. How many does each student get? But notice day 2, we only have 3 muffins, but we have 2 students. So how do I do that one? And you know what? Automatically, your students are going to know. We cut one of them in half. You know what they're doing? They're doing fractions right at the beginning. And what we want to be able to do is bring them back to this idea as they're working on it. Now, I would even have them look at it and say, you know what, if you could only be a student on one day, what day do you want to be the student on that gets to share the muffins? Because most of them want the day they could get the most. And they've got to look at that. And that's some really critical thinking when they go in and do that. Again, notice it's in their book, but you can project it right up on a screen. So they're looking up. And then the best way to work on a lot of these exercises is think, pair, share. Let the student think about it for a second, like day 1. Let them reflect. Let them talk to another student, and then talk about it whole group. So we do that Ignite activity to create that curiosity. So we want to start out with building that curiosity with students. And again, we just looked at 3 things you could use to do that. Number 1, the readiness diagnostic. Why do I say that builds a positive environment? Because if you help address their missing prerequisite skills, they have an opportunity to be successful in the unit. Secondly, the STEM career kid and that STEM idea. Why? Because it shows the connection to math with the real world. And then number 3 is the Ignite activity. And you'll be relieved to note all of that is built in the pacing of the unit. Now let's go into exploring that flexible lesson design. This is really important in your teacher's edition. Identifies for you how we structured every single lesson. Every lesson has a launch. We're then going to explore and develop the math. We're going to practice and reflect. We're going to assess, and this is on the lesson level. There's an exit ticket for every day. And then on a daily basis, we're going to differentiate. Now we have a variety of ways we do that, and we're going to look at this lesson structure as we walk through. So if I went into my teacher edition, we're going to look at lesson 7.1. We're going to do this quickly because of time, and I want to make sure you get a full overview of the lesson. But you're going to notice here, what are my learning targets for today? And my exit ticket is going to be focused on this. I can partition a shape into equal parts. I can describe the equal parts of a shape. Under that is the standard and the mathematical practices or processes that we're going to emphasize in this lesson. So we're going to share the focus. There's a content objective. There is a language objective. And there is an SEL objective about how we interact together around math. You're going to see the coherence. This is at the grade level. When did I last use it? What am I doing now? When will I use it next? So notice this one, the last time we saw this idea was in grade 2. Now, here's what we're doing. Next, we're going to see it after this unit in unit 7, but we're also going to see it in grade 4. So it gives the teacher that idea. Now, if you were to look at this at the unit level, it would be that big picture. Here, we're specifically looking at this lesson, and we're going to look at the 3 aspects of rigor. Please note, with the 3 aspects of rigor, conceptual understanding, procedural skill, fluency, and application, we touch on all 3 in the lesson, but the lesson is not necessarily focused on all three, because the standard we're looking at is primarily, this one is focused on conceptual understanding. Some standards focus on fluency, some focus on application, some focus on all 3, but we're going to tailor the instruction to the focus of the standard. Okay, so we'll still include that. Now, third thing I want you to jot down is the number routine. Every lesson will have a number routine. It works both on fluency and number sense. They are all written by our author, John Sangiovanni. They go directly with a prerequisite skill to the lesson. And you will see this. Now, this is one that is not in the student book, but here's the other really important thing about it. It's not really the beginning of the lesson. You can use this anytime during the day. And in fact, I would suggest that you use it at a different time than your math time or your math block. Use it very first thing in the morning. Use it after lunch. Use it as a break between 2 subjects or transitions you're going to do. Because the number routine is a fluency piece that lets you bring math into another part of the day. Now, can you do it at the beginning of a lesson? Absolutely. Could you do it at the end of the lesson? Absolutely. But it's a nice way to bring math in. Now, again, not in the book, but it's a prepared projection that you can show up on the screen. So, like, notice in this one, would you rather have the number of snacks in A or B? And this kind of goes right along with our muffin. Would you rather have 5 times 9 or 3 times 9? Now, they're not writing this out. Could they jot it down? Sure. But the idea is, do they have the number sense about which is bigger? Because if they realize in multiplication, the bigger numbers create a bigger result. That 5 times 9, that's going to be more snacks. And then what you'll have is you'll have a number of these that flows. There'll be like 3 of them that flow one after the other, and let the students, so this one, 40 or 5 times 7, 6 times 6 or 6 times 8. And what is your rationale? Again, really quick, think pair share, best way to do it. Think about it for a minute, turn to your partner, which is bigger. Let's talk about it whole group. Again, that really focuses on number sense and fluency. And then we go into the true launch of the lesson. So the number routine is a fluency piece built in, but the real start of the lesson is our be curious moment. In the be curious moment, we use a sense-making routine that creates a low floor, high ceiling activity that every student can respond to. Now, our lesson is partitioning shapes into equal parts. Notice here, how are they the same? How are they different? Now, just in your mind right now, or if you want to jot it down, how are these 3 shapes the same and how are they different? Okay. I know that really quickly in your mind, you're thinking, well, they're all round, or you may be thinking they're all divided into 4 pieces, or they all look like they're the same kind of material that's making them up. And then you look at how are they different, and you start coming up with your ideas, okay? Same, they're all divided into 4 parts. All the parts don't look the same. They're not divided the same way. So we could come up with all those things. Here's what it does. It engages every single student in the lesson, because every single student can think about how they're the same and how they're the different. Now, some might do it mathematically. Some may not do it mathematically, but it's okay because it has every student able to share an idea. Now, that's why we want to do think, pair, share, because let them think about it for a minute. If they do the pair share, every single student was able to verbalize something. And you know what? The reason many students don't suggest an answer is because they're afraid about being wrong. Here, they don't have to worry about being wrong because they notice something, and we're not looking for a specific answer. So they all get to share that. And then this is where we bring in that social emotional learning objective. How can you show that you value the different ways others solve problems? Like with this question right here, they will have different ideas about how they're the same and how they're different. They will learn from each other some of those different ways. Now, a couple things to note about this. Number one, don't skip it. Number two, about this, don't take 15 minutes to do this. This should be about 5 minutes. And the reason I warn you about that, I've seen teachers that have done this, they get so excited about it. They let that discussion go on for 15 minutes, and then we lose valuable time that we really want to explore and discover the math. So it should be quick. I would show it up on the screen, nowhere for them to write. Okay. Really good way to interact with that. Okay. To project it, or to look in their book and you hold your book up and show it. Okay. Notice nowhere to write. Not a problem. We're asking them to solve what I'm thinking about it. From there, we go into pose the problem. So we're now in that second part of the lesson, the explore and develop. Here's the problem. Arun is designing a flag in the shape of a rectangle. He wants to partition the flag into equal parts and have a different color in each part. How can he partition that flag into equal parts? Think about it for a minute. If you as a student were going to design a flag, how would you break this into equal parts and let each part have a different color? So again, let them think about it, discuss it as a class. What are some of the ways that we can do that? This is where it's going to get really interesting, because some students may just divide it in half. Some students, they want to use a lot of colors. They may break it into 6 equal parts, and you're going to have to look at them. What makes it equal? And that's what this whole lesson is about. But we're going to start out with this problem. Okay. Now, they'll have fun with it. Again, we're in 3rd grade right now because, man, I love making my own flag and designing things and using different colors. So they get to be able to do that. But how can Arun do it? Now, from this is the 4th thing I'm going to ask you to jot down. This is the most unique thing about Reveal Math, is when I go in to develop that idea after I pose the problem. This is the spread out of the teacher edition. You're going to notice here, it says develop the math. Choose the option that best meets the needs of your students. And then we're also going to talk about using a piece for our language learners. For those students, this is one of our math language routines, InfoGap. And for our students that English is not their first language, which is many of your students, here's a strategy that you can use along with developing the math. Now, notice on the right-hand page, though, it says you have two options. You have an activity-based option, and you have a guided exploration. And then notice down at the bottom, there are English learner scaffold suggestions built in. Entering and emerging for my beginners learners, developing and expanding for those that are making progress, and bridging and reaching for my advanced English learners. Specific strategies for this lesson. But let's talk about this activity-based versus guided. When I go in here, the activity-based is typically using manipulatives or drawing. They're hands-on involved in the task. The guided exploration is using a prepared presentation to walk students through the idea of the math. Now, let me back up here just for a minute. When they do that, there is still called out student interaction. So it's not just me standing up front talking. It's me interacting with the students, but in a more guided way. So notice the question here, which of these rectangles are partitioned into 4 equal parts? Well, none of them are the same, but there are a number of them that are divided into 4 equal parts. So in Arun's problem, it didn't have to be 4. We're just using that as an example here as we start to develop this idea of equal parts. So I have an activity-based exploration. I have a guided exploration. Now, three quick things to jot down about this. The idea behind this is I don't pick one and use it every lesson. So it's not like I decide I'm going to be activity-based or guided and my whole year is that way. Every lesson has an option. Number two, we give you guidance around which to choose. So at that lesson level, we're going to see, how do I choose? And then number three, you have flexibility in this. Some of those things about choosing, how did the students do on the readiness diagnostic for this unit around specific skills? Number two, what's the makeup of my class? Do they learn better being active, or do they need some of that guided? Number three, how did they do on yesterday's lesson? They were struggling yesterday. Maybe I need to do a little bit more guided. And number four, if I'm doing the activity based and I see they're not making the math connection, maybe I summarize with some of the guided piece. Now, I'm going to go back over to the digital just for a minute. And the reason I'm going to do that is when I get into a lesson, where do I find the resources that are going to help me with this? So I'm going to come back over to the digital. Now, both for my teachers and for my coordinators and coaches, I'm going to come back up to browse my course for a minute. And as an overarching help with this, under that learning and support resources right here, I'm going to click this open, and you are going to see a whole section. I'm going to scroll down a little bit. Let me close this one up. I'm going to see a whole section that says guided and activity-based exploration. And when I open this up, Linda Gojak, our lead author, how have we structured these lessons for two parts? Why have two approaches? How are they similar? How are they different? And guys, the things you're going to love about this, they're great for PLCs or department meetings. They're like 3 to 5 minutes long. These aren't 30-minute webinars. They're quick. What's the role of the teacher and role of the student? And then notice we go into the guided. Let's look at a lesson walkthrough, some of the teaching tips, and then let's look at it modeled in a classroom. Grade one, part one, part two, bring it together, grade one, then we get into grade four. Let's look at pose the problem, grade four, the guided exploration. And then underneath that, guess what we're going to see? We're going to see the same thing for the activity-based. Let's do the walkthrough. What are the teaching tips? Let's look at this in some classrooms. So you'll see those classroom videos. And then one other part, because you might miss it, you'll see those classroom videos there. But then if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you're going to see model lessons in different grade levels, both for guided and for activity-based. And when you open that up, you'll see the number routine. You'll have each part of that lesson in an actual classroom modeled for you. Number one, that's a great support for deciding overall, how do I choose between guided or activity-based? Now we're going to go back to our lesson. We're going to go back to our unit. I'm going to go back to browse. I was in unit 3. We're going to go to lesson 1, understanding equal groups. And again, notice how the blades are broken apart. Lesson resources, that's going to be all my planning tools. So here's my student edition. Here's my print student edition, and all the difference is the interactive one, students, wherever they would write in the print book, they can interact with it. The print is an exact duplicate of what you see in the print. So if you want to project it, you can. My teacher edition, but please don't miss this. There's a created PowerPoint for you right here for the lesson. It is PowerPoint. It's downloadable. Notice the download button right here. And it's editable. You can change it. And then right underneath it, there is a zip folder with everything in this lesson, whether it's core to the lesson, whether it's differentiation, supplemental, every downloadable piece is in this zip folder. So if you click download, that folder you'll unzip it. You'll have everything right there that would be available. It's all separate. I mean, if you go into the number routine or the lesson, you can find all those pieces as a separate printable, but this way you have it in one place. Notice then here's my number routine, my launch, which is my Be Curious moment, but then I'm going to open up Explore and Develop, and notice the very first thing. understanding equal groups, how do I choose whether I should do the activity-based or the guided? The activity-based, I'm going to use counters as my resource. My teacher edition will give me guidance on doing that. But this is the other part I don't want you to miss. Please jot this down. If you look at the instruction in the student edition, you are going to see a summary of the instruction. The point of that student edition is not for the student to look at every single thing, and that's going to be the full development of the math. That's the summary so that when we get done with the lesson, they can go back and review and be supported with that. This guided exploration is an interactive version of that guided process. Now I'm going to click this one open. Now I'm not going to do that with a lot of things just because of time we have, but I'm going to open this up in a new tab. And the reason I'm doing that is because I can go back to my main part, grab other resources. But notice right here, we're going to break the instruction down into small chunks or pieces. So number one, pose the problem. How can you present the number of peaches in 3 baskets? Now, this is from a different lesson. I'm sorry about that. When I click right here, and in fact, you know what, guys, let me do this because it is a little more consistent. I'm going to close that. I actually picked the wrong unit. I'm going to go back up to browse. Sorry about that. Let me go to browse my course. We were in unit 7, lesson 1. This will be better because the stuff actually matches what I'm doing. But notice, explore and develop. How do I choose? I've got a little introduction about my activity-based, and then here's that guided part. And when I click this open, and again, I'm going to do it in a new tab. Sorry, I was doing unit 3 earlier today. And I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning of this. Number 1, pose the problem. Here's a room. Designing a flag. He wants to break it into parts. How can he partition it? If I go to the next slide, how can you partition or divide the rectangle into 4 parts? Let's show some different ways we could do this if we were doing it in 4s. And so you know what? Students, if they're in their interactive book, could actually do this, or they could draw it on their book in the corner and actually divide it up into 4 parts. What are different ways? And the cool thing about this is students will do it different ways. So we look at that and I scroll down a little bit and I can actually click on here and say, you know what? You can draw lines to partition it into 4 parts. And I actually have a line tool right here that I can click on and say, well, you know what? I think maybe I want to just draw it into 4 parts like this. So I'm going to draw it here. And you know, the other thing we'll find, sub-students who are better than me will actually say, well, let's divide it into half first, and then I'm going to divide each half into a half. They may even use that language, even though they're not so familiar. But the idea behind this guided presentation is it's now interactive, and I'm taking them step by step through that idea. So a great thing for you to do, take a lesson, look at it in the print book, and then look at the guided presentation that goes along with it. Now, here's my only fear about this. I have my guided presentation. If I go back, close this, and I look at my planning resources right here, you're going to notice those same slides will be in my PowerPoint presentation. Only difference, I won't have the interactive tools built in there because it's PowerPoint. So a great way to actually bring that lesson up. Now, guys, I'm going to speed up a little bit because I do want to save a little bit of time. When we finish, you're going to see going through that, we're going to use concrete, we're going to use pictorial, and we're going to do abstract, because that development allows students to cement in their mind. If I just start with the abstract, I'm going to lose a bunch of students. Now, not every lesson will have all 3. You'll see that. And so I have that instruction in here, and then we're really going to focus on the language. Those math language routines come out of Stanford University. And then the language of math is a feature that really lets you focus on the mathematical use of language. We want students using those words in their discussions. So students may have heard of a partition before that's like a wall, but we want them to start thinking about it mathematically. So we'll call those things out for you. Don't skip the scaffolds, remember them. And then at the end of the explore and develop, we bring it all together. Now, that bring it all together is a working together task. It's right in the student book, but we want students discussing it together. And then we go into practice and reflect. Typically 2 pages of practice. It varies on DOK level. It's in the interactive student. It's in the print student book. So you have it both ways depending on how you want to use it. And here's another one I want you to jot down. I think this is the 5th time I've asked you to do it. Every lesson has a math replay video. About 90 seconds long, and it walks back through this lesson the same way it was taught. So if I click on this one,
partition shapes into equal parts. Today, you will learn how to partition a shape into equal parts. Arun is designing a flag in the shape.
now notice in this, same way we brought up the problem. We're going to look at how we, how we work through that. But two big uses for this. One, if a parent wants to help their student, they can actually see how the math was discussed that day. The student was at home, they can watch this. Or number 3, if a student just needs to review what we did today, they can go back through this. This is for every single lesson, that math replay video. Now, you're going to see different levels of DOK in that practice. And then finally, at the end, you're going to see some reflection opportunities. With the practice, you will always know the DOK levels of the questions. And here's number 6 to jot down. Every lesson has a digital or printable extra practice piece that goes along with it. Every lesson, if you need more practice, has that printable for every single lesson. Now, I'm going to wrap the lesson up with tailoring needs, and I'm going to do that in like 3 minutes. Into the lesson, every lesson has an exit ticket. Paper, pencil, digital. Advantage of the digital, I get data from it. Paper, pencil, though, you notice almost all of these is 3 questions. The point of this typically is not a grade, but it's for you to pick up and be able to see by just flipping through them who got it and who didn't get it. So when I come in tomorrow, I actually know who I need to respond to. And the other thing with this, I already told you, whenever we do assessment, we have action items. In the assessment or in the teacher edition, you're going to see this little chart. If they got 3 out of 3, 2 out of 3, or 1 or fewer, that says reinforce understanding, build proficiency, and extend thinking. And I hope you're ready for this. But when you turn the page in the TE, you're going to see this chart. If I need to reinforce understanding, column 1, I have a small group activity, I have an online activity, and I have an independent work. That's going to focus on more support on the lesson idea. If I need to build proficiency, I don't need the reinforcement. I've got 6 activities, 2 workstation, 2 online, 2 independent. And then number 3, if the student has this lesson, they got that 3 out of 3, I've got 3 options to extend their thinking. I've got a workstation, an online, and I've got an independent. Guys, we can't go into all these. In fact, I got to wrap up because I want to hit a few of the questions, but I just want you to know that all of these support that student learning. Best thing you could do, take one lesson, look at the lesson, then go into my 3 reinforce, look at your workstation, your online, and your independent for proficiency, and look at the same thing for your extended learning. That lets you do that. Now, really quick, jot this down. Average pacing for a lesson, 45 minutes with another 15 to 20 minutes for the differentiation. Student needs reinforcement. Rather than giving them the homework or practice at the end, maybe use one of these other pieces that's going to support specifically doing that. The one I'm going to call out here is to take another look lesson. They are like 15-minute digital mini lessons with additional instruction, practice, and then a short data collecting quiz for you. Super, super important. Okay. The workstations are already set up for you on each of those levels. And again, it's a great way to expose kids to the idea, maybe in that differentiation time. Now, last thing I'm going to touch on, guys, I'm going to skip ahead a couple here. This is an example of the build thinking, but where I want to end, had too many things I wanted to do. I'm going to skip that. I wanted to come to the end of the unit. End of the unit, you have a unit review in the book, you have a practice performance task, but then we come to this right here. That diagnostic, especially those unit diagnostics, that formative assessment we've seen in the math probe, the practice, the exit ticket, and then the summative, I'm going to skip this one. The summative assessment, there is a unit assessment and a performance task for every lesson. And the only thing I want to mention, two different versions of the digital one, they're printable as well. But when you give them, you have this same chart, but now it's for the on-lesson content, on grade level. Item 1, DOK level 1 came from lesson 3-4, unknown group size. Here, there is a guided intervention lesson goes along with that. Flip over to the digital, show you two things, okay? This is a lesson level. Number routine, launch, explore, and develop. We saw that. Practice and reflect. Here's my exit ticket under assess. All of those resources on that differentiation page are right here. These are the ones that go with that lesson. And then I have to show you this because I always get lost. If I go to the unit, so I'm browse my course and I click on my unit, it's going to take me into that unit. And then if I scroll down all the way to the bottom of this, the end of unit materials are at the end of that unit. Unit review and assess. So my prep resources, my review, my assessment, right underneath that is the targeted intervention. So let me click over to the chat for a minute and take a look at this. There is a digital. Oh, Laura's already answering a bunch of these. Okay, a lot of his questions that you already answered, Laura. The thing I would tell you though is when you get into this, some of the most important things. Number one, the math is unit sets up the year about what math is all about. Number two, in every unit, don't skip the readiness diagnostic. And remember, you have the built-in guided intervention lessons to support not the grade level skills at that point, but the prerequisite skills. Don't skip the Ignite activity. It's a great way to build curiosity. We get into the lesson. We have that 5-part lesson. We're going to launch the lesson with the Be Curious moment. We're going to go in and explore and develop. And we have 2 ways to explore and develop the math. Number 1, we have the activity-based. Number 2, the guided. And I need to look at every lesson and decide what's best for my class. Number 3, the practice and reflect. Number 4, the assess for the lesson, which is the exit ticket. And number 5 are those great differentiation resources that you have choice from at the end of the lesson. With all that, don't forget that lesson has that number routine. The end of the unit, we're going to do that unit assessment, either performance task or the summative assessment. And with that, if a student is struggling still with the idea, we have those guided intervention lessons at the unit level as well. Now, one last thing about the digital, just remember when I share this is, let me go back to share my screen. You know what? In that course level, so I need to scroll back up to the top of this, browse my course. Built into those learning resources right here, there's a lot of support in here for you. And then if you need a quick review of the digital, let me X out of that. Let's just go back to the dashboard. And right here under the resources is this digital walkthrough. super helpful for you. So with that, I'm going to stop and give you one last opportunity. Any specific questions? Patrick, are there downloadable versions of the material? A lot of the materials inside the digital are downloadable, and anything that's downloadable will have a download button right by it. At the unit level, you'll have a zip folder that has all the downloadable materials for the unit level. And in each lesson, under the lesson resources, there's a zip folder with the downloadable resources for that lesson. There are a few things that are not downloadable. The games are not downloadable. The interactive presentation isn't downloadable. So just so you know, there are a lot of things that are, but a lot of things that aren't. So Laura, we're right at time.
Yes, we are.
Any last comments that you need to make?
Not really. Thank you so much, DJ. But I would like to remind everyone that I've actually posted the link for our landing page for our BTS. So you can actually click on it, and there's actually resources, there's blogs, there's you can register for our upcoming webinars, which are maybe not product specific. We just had one these understanding by design webinar just happened like two nights ago. So you might want to check out the webinars that we have in there. So I think that's about it. Thank you so much, DJ.
Thanks to all of you for the gift of your time. I know that's the most valuable thing we have. So thank you for joining us. You'll get the recording. If it would help some of your other teachers, please share the recording with them. And if there are other ones on the site that are helpful for you or for your teams, please share those as well. Okay. Thanks, guys. Have a great morning and a great day.